Walt Disney had been up and down with his pursuit of animation, and the need to create something artistically beautiful rather than cartoonishly silly. Animators strived to create Walt's vision, but many of them came from making Mickey Mouse cartoons, and hadn't necessarily spent their time working in fine art. Talented as they were, most of Walt's main animators never left the company, nor the style of Disney animation. That's why in the 1950s, Walt Disney gave major roles in background design and art direction to a prolific painter, Eyvind Earle. If you've studied Disney at all, you may have heard the name Eyvind Earle, as he was a major name who spent years working on Disney's Sleeping Beauty, but his work on that one film doesn't even begin to describe his life or his work. You may be surprised to hear that he didn't even join the Walt Disney Company until his mid-30s, and he had lived what probably seems like several lives prior to his tenure working for Walt and the Mouse. Born into an artistic family in 1916, with his mother being a concert pianist and his father being a painter and filmmaker, Eyvind Earle and his family picked up and moved from New York to Hollywood when he was 4 years old. When his older brother and he were stricken with polio, it actually killed his older brother and left him with the right side of his face paralyzed. Aspiring to be an artist at a young age, his paralysis actually gave him the motivation to work harder, creating beautiful paintings when he himself felt ugly. In his teen years, his father kidnapped him, telling his mother that they would take a trip to Palm Springs when in reality his father ran away to Mexico. There he told Eyvind that every day he needed to paint one painting or write poetry. This not only pushed young Eyvind to work harder while being with his father, but created a worker mentality that stuck with him the rest of his life, and he never stopped artistically creating. He would actually leave his father and end up in France with his half-brother, one of many children from his father's 4 marriages. In France, he was actually able to showcase his art in galleries before he ended up moving back to California in time to help his mother during the Great Depression of the 1930s. To survive, his mother was teaching piano lessons, and he took up creating Christmas cards. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, he would create over 800 different Christmas card designs. Also during this time, to see other family, he actually bicycled across the United States, from California to New York in 42 days, still painting something every day. There he continued to help his family while also having gallery showings of his work, and even getting one of his paintings purchased by New York City's Metropolitan Museum of Art. And during the 1940s, he was drafted into the Navy for World War II, still painting religiously as he was deployed. And after the war ended, he would once again return to California to help his mother. But by the end of the 1940s, he was also starting his own family with his first wife, Alice. And even though his paintings were still being displayed in galleries, he had to really start thinking about serious money so that he could provide for his family. He went to work for an architect designing buildings, which gave him his distinct modern style, one that he would bring to Walt Disney when he was hired in 1951 to paint backgrounds for a Goofy short called When the Bull Toils. When he first arrived at the Walt Disney Studio, he found tons of little paintings and pieces of art by Mary Blair up on the walls of the studio. At that time, Blair had been a concept artist for Disney, helping lead animators with an artistic direction and color palette. Earle followed suit in a similar style to Blair, blending her mid-century modern style with his classic fine art style. While he worked on several animated shorts, his big breakthrough was for the 1953 short Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom, a short that would go on to win an Academy Award for its unique look and the way it told the story of musical instruments. His concept artwork would also translate over to feature films. He would actually design illustrations for the Peter Pan Golden Book and add background art to that film. Peter Pan was one of his early assignments, so it has more classic Disney and Mary Blair approaches, but his next feature film would bring him a lot more freedom and a heavier workload. Walt Disney approached Eyvind Earle to work on the Bella Notte sequence of Lady and the Tramp. Much of the film takes place in the city, But after the dogs eat their famous spaghetti meal, they share a stroll through the park and spend the night together there. The scene had to showcase romance and had to be the definitive point in which Lady finally falls for Tramp. This sequence of artistry is defined by silhouettes, a contrast between the harshness of the trees in the forefront and the softness of the skyline that draws your eyes to the moonlight in the background. There's this colorful warmth from the Chinese lanterns, and a sense of a cool evening breeze that moves across the waterways of the park. The artwork in this scene evokes a romanticism of nature and how peaceful it is opposed to the busy streets of the city. How romantic it can be to be together alone in a quiet place. The spaghetti dinner scene might be what people remember from Lady and the Tramp, but those characters' walk through the park afterwards is truly what sells their love story. It shows us that love can be simple and quiet. And because of his efforts here, Eyvind Earle would be tasked with the job he's most famous for, his work on Sleeping Beauty. Earle's art for Lady and the Tramp took up just a few minutes on screen, but for Sleeping Beauty, he was in charge of the entire film's design and color palette, along with painting all of the backgrounds for the film. His attention to detail and devotion to making this film as artistically beautiful as possible dragged out the production of Sleeping Beauty for 6 years. Walt Disney was in awe of the artwork that was happening and didn't push for it to be rushed. And animators had to step up their game as well and were actually upset with Earle for making them have to work harder to keep their characters from looking unprofessional against his beautiful backgrounds. It was uncommon to have a singular artistic vision for a film, but Walt's commitment to Eyvind Earle and his style paid off. Earle mixed mid-century modern looks that Mary Blair had brought to the table with Renaissance and Gothic artwork. Like with Lady and the Tramp, he used colors and textures to create moods, to invoke the weather, or to tell you about the details of how a castle was built. Walt Disney was so sure of this film that even before its release, he opted to name Disneyland's iconic castle after the film. Eyvind Earle would actually leave the Disney studio in 1958 before the production of Sleeping Beauty was done, allowing for the supervising director Clyde Geronimi to soften his work, making the backgrounds less detailed and allowing the animators to shine over Earle's artwork. After leaving Disney, he continued to work in film and television in the early 1960s, doing stop motion and classic animation for TV commercials and opening title sequences. He even helped create TV specials for Christmas and Easter for NBC. By 1966, he was out of Hollywood and went back to painting full-time. He did so all the way up until he passed in July of 2000 at the age of 84. Thanks to his father, by the time that he left the world, he had given us thousands of paintings, over 800 Christmas cards, and like Mary Blair, had completely changed the direction of the Walt Disney Studio. And he gave animation an artistic style, something that has continued to inspire artists and animators ever since. If you've been inspired or loved the artwork of Eyvind Earle, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite piece that he's ever done is, or if you actually own any of his artwork. And let me know down below what other Disney legends or Disney animators, Disney Imagineers, people that have just generally worked for Disney, who you'd like to see me highlight in the next Disney Legends video. And until next time, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in supporting me on Patreon or buying some merch, there's links down in the description below. And as always, my friends, keep moving forward.